The planet of Zenther was a cold and desolate world, its atmosphere thick with an ever-present gray mist that obscured the sun. A place where survival was not a given, but a constant struggle. It was on this harsh planet that Zara, a single mother from the alien race of Kyrians, found herself abandoned. Her daughter, Lyra, was only 6, and they were all alone on a world that had become an inhospitable wasteland after the collapse of the Kyrian Empire. Zara's past had been a beautiful one. Once, she had been part of a thriving civilization, living amongst the stars, surrounded by peace and prosperity. But everything had changed when the Kyrian Empire fell, leaving its people scattered and stranded across the galaxy. Zara had tried to make a life for herself and her daughter on Zenther, but it was hard. She had seen many of her people leave, searching for refuge on other planets or joining different factions. But Zara and Lyra had no such options. Zenther was their only home now. The last colony they had known was gone, and the once supportive society had turned its back on them, leaving them to fend for themselves in the unforgiving wilderness of the planet. The local humans, once friendly to her people, had abandoned them as well. After the collapse of the Kyrian Empire, the human settlers had turned against the alien survivors, fearing what their weakened race might bring. Zara had tried reaching out to them for help, but all her efforts had been met with indifference or outright hostility. It was as if the entire galaxy had decided that the Kyrians were no longer worth saving. Alone in their small, makeshift shelter made of scrap metal and salvage materials, Zara did her best to take care of Lyra. The girl had inherited her mother's striking blue skin and silver hair, with eyes that shone like twin stars. She was a reminder of the beauty that once existed in the Kyrian people, but also a symbol of their fall. Zara often wondered what kind of future awaited her daughter. She feared that Lyra would grow up in a galaxy that no longer valued her kind. One cold evening, as Zara was preparing a meager meal for them, she heard something outside their shelter, a soft rustling in the tall, brittle grasses that surrounded their camp. She tensed, reaching for the makeshift weapon she had fashioned from a broken piece of metal. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. "Stay inside, Lyra," Zara whispered urgently to her daughter, who had been drawing quietly in the corner. But Lyra had heard it too. Her bright eyes looked up from her drawing pad, filled with curiosity. "Who is it, Mama?" Zara's heart raced as she made her way to the small entrance of their shelter, peeking through a crack in the door. She could see a figure moving in the distance, silhouetted against the mist. She couldn't make out the details, but it wasn't another Kyrian. It wasn't one of the hostile humans. Whoever it was human, but there was something different about the figure, a kind of determination that suggested they weren't just another wanderer. "Stay inside," Zara repeated, her voice strained. She didn't want to risk her daughter's safety. The figure drew closer, and Zara's hand instinctively tightened around the metal weapon. Her heart skipped a beat as the figure emerged from the mist, an unfamiliar human man, tall and rugged, wearing the standard uniform of a space traveler. But there was something more in his eyes, something that made Zara hesitate. His gaze wasn't filled with disdain, as she had grown used to from other humans. Instead, there was curiosity, concern, and, to her surprise, kindness. "Are you all right?" the man asked, his voice deep and warm. He had an accent that Zara couldn't quite place, but it wasn't hostile. "I've been traveling for days and saw your smoke. I didn't expect to find anyone here." Zara stared at him, unsure of what to say. This wasn't what she had expected. She had expected a confrontation, an attack, maybe even a dismissal. But this man wasn't threatening them. He looked concerned. "Who are you?" Zara asked, her voice cautious. The man smiled slightly, stepping closer. "My name's Ethan. I'm just passing through. I've been stranded on this planet after an engine failure. But you look like you've been here much longer than I have." Zara's heart pounded in her chest. Could it be? Could he really be here to help them? Or was this another human trying to take advantage of their situation? I don't have much to offer, Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've only been here with my daughter. Everyone else is gone. Ethan's eyes softened as he looked past her into the shelter, where Lyra peeked out from behind the door. The girl's wide eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, the two just stared at each other. I don't want anything from you, Ethan said gently. I just want to make sure you're okay. You're not alone anymore. Zara was unsure how to respond. She had become so used to surviving on her own that the idea of having help seemed impossible. But Ethan's genuine tone and his willingness to approach them without a weapon made her feel a sense of hope she hadn't felt in months. In the days that followed, Ethan stayed with them. He fixed their shelter, brought supplies, and shared stories of the outside world. A world beyond Zenther, where human colonies were thriving, where there were still ships that traveled to distant stars. He even took the time to talk with Lyra, teaching her small things about the human world, even though they couldn't communicate much. His warmth and generosity began to break through the walls Zara had built around her heart. As the weeks passed, Zara began to trust Ethan. She could see that he wasn't just another scavenger or soldier looking for a way to survive. He was genuinely invested in helping them. He learned more about the Kyrians and their past, and he promised that he would never leave them alone again. It wasn't long before the connection between them grew stronger, something beyond just survival. One evening, as they sat around a fire, the wind howling outside, Ethan turned to Zara. You know, he began, his voice serious. I can't imagine what you've been through, being here all alone. But I promise you, you and Lyra don't have to face this alone anymore. Zara's heart swelled. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't an outcast, like she wasn't invisible in the universe. I don't know what to say, she whispered. I thought I would always be alone. But you came here, and you've helped us in ways I didn't think possible. Ethan smiled, reaching out and gently touching her hand. I didn't just come here to help. I came because I want to be here. I want to be with you. And that was the moment everything changed. Ethan stayed with Zara and Lyra. Over time, their relationship grew deeper and their bond stronger. As they worked together to rebuild their lives, Zara realized that, despite everything, the abandonment, the loneliness, and the grief, she had found someone who cared. She had found a partner. She wasn't just the alien single mother anymore. She was a woman loved and cherished by the man who had saved her. Months later, after much discussion and planning, Ethan proposed. Zara, though still surprised by the suddenness of it all, agreed, knowing in her heart that this was the family she had longed for. The small ceremony was held under the stars, with Lyra by their side. It was humble, but it was perfect. And with that, Zara, Lyra, and Ethan started a new chapter together. They left the ruins of Zenther behind, venturing into the stars with a love that defied the odds and a family that had been created against all the challenges they had faced. As they traveled through the galaxy, the stars no longer seemed so cold and distant. For Zara and Lyra, the universe had opened up to them in ways they never expected, and with Ethan by their side, they knew they were no longer abandoned. They were loved together with a future to build. Zara, Lyra, and Ethan became the embodiment of resilience, an alien single mother, a human man, and a daughter born from tragedy, now living a life of love and adventure. They had found each other, and in that, they had found their place in the universe.